we've watched this Horizon Forbidden West presentation. I don't know how much we have to say about it, but there were 14 minutes of gameplay in there, and then some interviews with the creative director and etc. So we got a little bit of story detail and all of that. We can talk about whatever you guys like, but Chris, let's just start with you. What did you think of what we saw? It's the first time we've really seen the game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it looked good. It looks combat looks a little bit more fluid. There's a little bit more verticality to it. But also it looks like more Horizon. You know, it looks like Horizon again. And I think that's what people want anyway. I don't think it looks bad at all. I think it looks pretty like graphically it looks pretty impressive. Even I mean, obviously it's running on PS5. This one. We didn't get a confirmed 2021 though, which is kind of weird. I thought that was bizarre. I thought for sure there was going to be some release date confirmation today, but
you would assume so.
But overall, I think it looks like Horizon Zero Dawn, but a little bit more polished, which is really all that game needed, in my opinion. It's going to be hard for me to judge how the combat is because that's something that I need to feel, but it looks improved enough for me to be like, okay, this is what I needed personally, as somebody who found the moment-to-moment gameplay in the first Horizon a little bit off in certain places, and largely because, you know, Guerrilla is typically like a first-person shooter studio. That's what they've, you know, that's what they cut their teeth on, and that was their first foray into third-person open world, you know, action adventure. And I think now it looks like they've ironed out most of the kinks. But I don't know if I have that much to say about it aside from I think it looks good.
Yeah, I was kind of left with that impression as well. I think I agree with you. Like it looks like more Horizon, so it doesn't look like it's reinventing the wheel in any way. And it looks fun. It looks a little bit more vertical. It looks a little quicker. I mean, I have a total crush on Aloy. I think she's totally an awesome character. And so it's cool to see her back in action. I think she's rad. But I was actually, again, taken with the release date, which we can get into in a little while. I was waiting. I thought that's what they were going to say at the end. And they very conspicuously avoided all mention of release, which tells me something, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I was actually left more smitten with the lore, Dustin. I'm a huge lore guy. I love writing lore for our games, and I love reading lore in games and learning about universes and worlds and all of that. And this idea of a raider clan that can override the machines to such a degree that they're painting them and designing shit on them. It was actually really cool. The world looks more lived in and dirty in that way. It's much more tribalistic, which was always something that was the Horizon always had that American Indian kind of feel to it anyway. But what did you think about that? I loved seeing like the war paint on the animals. Like you would see war paint on a war elephant, you know, in the Alps or something like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's more what I was taken by than the gameplay itself.
Yeah, I thought that was a really neat aspect. I really liked the robot elephant or whatever that had the
tremor tusk.
Yes,
they called it. Yeah,
and it had they had like built stuff on top of it, like it was like a war, you know, thing. But I loved when she took it down. Well, I think the top, like the thing they built on top fell off, and I really was like, whoa, that destruction looks pretty good. And actually, there's a part where it also like ran into a wall, and the destruction looked really cool. Mm-hmm. So I was interested in that from a technical aspect, but also just how beautiful it was when they went underwater, and it felt really alive. Which I guess if you think about it, like a 1,000 years of untouched ocean, the level of coral reef would be, you know, crazy.
Yeah,
but
reclamation,
right? And the one other thing. So I know this isn't about the lore like you asked, but
it's okay.
I thought it was cool when they did They did a breakdown at the end that talked about like, oh, here's the specific different things about this game. Here's what we're, you know, to look for. I liked how when this game came out in 2017, it came out at the same time as Zelda Breath of the Wild, which they're very different, but also somewhat you can compare them. I mean, they're both big open world games, but a lot of people, when they played Horizon, were like, man, I wish I could climb more stuff and I wish I could glide places. And that was the first two things they highlighted, is that you can climb a lot more in the open world. And then she had that awesome gliding thing. So I thought that was cool. I like, it adds another layer of freedom to your world.
Definitely. And seeing San Francisco, it was clear it was San Francisco to me before we saw the bridge, but Golden Gate Bridge, but it was because you saw like a trolley and a few other hints. But I lived in San Francisco, as you guys know, for a decade, and I could imagine where she was even seeing the bridge from that perspective. It's like Pack Heights and the marina and all that. So it's kind of cool. It felt familiar to me in that way. I like seeing Aloy more confident, braggadocious in battle, a little bit different. She always had a lot of confidence since she was a child, we learned, but I liked seeing that as well. And then I liked to the point of it's almost too tropical for the Bay Area. And so we see that the map has changed. When we see the map of the world, we see that there's like basically a huge ocean. California is kind of like a peninsula now, and there's some other things. So a lot of cool, again, lore stuff. And I like some of the weapons too. The glue ball, like the adhesive gun, like that shot the yellow adhesive was really neat. And we saw the radial quickly, which looked clean. It looked actually a lot like the original, and that stuff often changes. I got I don't remember what the name of the planet is, but the tropical planet in Rogue One, where like they're fighting on the you know what I'm talking about?
I forgot.
Where it's like the archive. It's like the archive planet where they're like fighting around it, and the AT-ATs are in like the water and in the ocean, and like the palm trees are everywhere. Yeah, Scarif. That's what it kind of reminded me of, actually.
Yeah.
Like totally reminded me of that. So very cool stuff. We learned a little bit about the tribes and all of this. I'm reading my notes here, but otherwise, the other thing I just wanted to ask before we go, it looks like, by the way, they're going to go to Los Angeles. It seemed on the map. Maybe San Diego or something like that. It's hard to kind of tell, but it looked like they were moving that way. Chris, I'm curious when you think the game will be released and when you think they'll tell us when the game is being released. And this is what I was going to say earlier is I don't know if they're being cagey on purpose, and it's exciting. Like we're seeing Horizon for the first time, Horizon Forbidden West for the first time. So it's like, all right, let everyone digest the gameplay and talk about it. We don't need to also have a release date. But part of me is also like, well, why wouldn't you do this and like show the special edition? It's May, it's late May, it's almost June. Like if it's coming out in November, it's time to like start showing this stuff, and you could start taking pre-orders. And I mean, how long have we been able to fucking pre-order Deathloop? You know?
Yeah.
So I just, to me, I don't know exactly how to read it. I can imagine like a situation where in literally 3 weeks or a month, they're like, the game's coming out November 15th or something. And then I can imagine that they just literally don't say anything until September, at which point they're like, the game is coming in Q2 or something. So I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. Chris, when do you think we'll learn about when the game's coming out, and when do you think the game will come out?
I assume that Sony is going to be active in some capacity during E3. I have to assume that like they're going to be a little bit more forthcoming with stuff that's stuff that they're working on around that time. Even though they say, you know, we don't participate in E3, it's like, come on, like you do, you just don't by name. You know,
right.
Like the same thing that Nintendo did. It's like we're not gonna do E3 anymore, except we're gonna go the day before E3, and it's a big fucking, you know, it's. I imagine we're going to hear about it there. I think maybe they did probably just want to get the gameplay out there, get people talking about it, and then during that time they'll be like, hey, here's the release date, here's the special edition, and maybe here's a surprise or fucking whatever. I could see that being the strategy. But it's a little weird. We're getting to a point now where, like you said, it's May. We've come off of a year of delay after delay after delay, not for Horizon Zero Dawn, but for like every video game ever. So yeah. It's a little antsy when you see a trailer like this and you see a gameplay deep dive and there's no release date. Because immediately what I thought was like, oh, is this further away than, like, is God of War gonna shadow drop? That's the first thing that came to my head. But I think more realistically, I think we're probably going to see this game in fall of this year. There's too much gameplay here. There's I don't know if you do a gameplay deep dive if you're not pretty close to launch, which means we're even further away from God of War than we even thought we were. But I would imagine, I feel like either September or October. I don't think November is it. I don't think they're going to put it out in November. I think November's steeped in competition.
Yeah.
And it would be wise to just although maybe they want that. Maybe they want the attention on PlayStation in that period of time. I could see that. But
they don't typically release games in that window. So it would be interesting to do.
I would assume around then. But we have to be getting this game this year, right? Like, there's no way.
I would assume, I don't know. I mean, of course, the original came out in February, so this could be another February release, of which it would have been like 5 years almost to the month. It would be 5 years to the month if they did that. But I don't know, Dustin. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that they're being intentionally? Are they obfuscating because they don't know, or are they obfuscating because they don't want to say yet? Because it really could be just that they don't want to distract from the gameplay and they'll have another beat in the media by releasing the date. They don't have to show anything else for that.
Right. They don't have to play all their cards with this game at once. It'll be another little exciting burst at whatever their fake E3 thing will be to show the date. And I think I'm actually like almost in total agreement with everything Chris said, but I'm going to lean probably more towards October than September, just in the fact that they have Deathloop on September 14th, which in one sense they wouldn't want to crowd it, but I don't know. That's not one of their first party. It's a kind of a weird space now.
Yeah, it's also a Microsoft game, so maybe they might just do that just out of like, hey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's worth noting. I kept saying like they that game is discounted on PlayStation Plus and has been to pre-order it since it, which you don't really ever see for this long. So I don't know. There's something up there. I'll disagree with you guys. I think that they're not going to make it this year. I think maybe they're keeping their options open, but this is a really important game to get right. It's true that they don't really release games in Q4 typically. They sometimes do. Gran Turismo, for instance, comes out. Like those games sneak in, and obviously like Beyond Two Souls was and the launch games for consoles. But I'm gonna say February, like the same, like 5 years. Maybe they even do 5 years from the week or something to when the original came out. They did release that full standalone DLC, so they've been working hard, and I don't think it's really that long for them to have taken, especially in COVID. I think they need something this fall, but I just don't think it's going to be ready to go. And I think that pushes God of War to like the fall.
Yeah, because there's no way that God of War is going to I there's no way they're just going to be like, oh, surprise, here's God of War.
No, they would never do that with God of War. And I don't think you can release God of War I don't think you can release it before Horizon because it's a PS5 only game. I think you need to get this game out of the way, very similar to Miles Morales, and then you move on Didn't
Spider-Man PS4 launch in September? Am I wrong? Is that
it did launch in September, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
September 2018, as I recall.
Yeah, so there's precedent for that. I think.
To be clear, I said Q4, so that's still Q3. So I just.
Oh right.
I agree with you completely. September's because like Until Dawn came out in that window and other games too. Like I think that's a great time to release games. Generally speaking, like people are back in school and like. You're studying and you're tired and you're back at sports and you like want a game to play. I feel like that's a perfect time.
Yeah.
That back to school era. I connect to lots of games like Mega Man Legends and like Xenogears and shit like that and Brave Fencer Musashi. I connect all of those to like the beginning of school years. Tales of Destiny.
Oh yeah,
like
totally.
Those games. I couldn't wait to come back. Like, I didn't want to be back in school. I couldn't wait to come home. So it's that sort of thing as well. So yeah. All right. So you guys are saying, well, Chris says September. Dustin, you say October?
Sure.
Okay. Well, is that what you say? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, I don't really know. I'm going to go with October. I feel like it's
okay.
I feel like it's this year for sure.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I think.
Okay.
I think they're going to want to get out before November, because November is a big month.
Yeah, and I think the longer you wait, there's a diminishing return because it's not only November; it's past that as this glut of games that has been delayed is going to come out. So we keep saying, like, I think Q1, Q2, 2022, all the way through to the end of 2023 is going to be a shit show of just twice as many games coming out as were meant to come out, basically. And it's going to be very competitive. It's going to be fun, but Sony's got to kind of navigate around that as well. But I think that they want to, and I think it's possible they hit this. And I'm not trying to, because I'm going to definitively say I think it's coming next year. I think it's possible that's what they want is for it to come this year. But I think it's very weird, even if you don't show the release date, to say like, we can't wait for you to play the game later this year. I mean, that's all you have to say is like, we'll show you, you'll see more of the game leading up to its release later this year. They don't even say anything like that. So I just think that's too weird. It's not that the release date itself is missing. It's that there's no telegraphing. So yeah, I will say February, 5 years from the date or so from the original release of Horizon. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it comes out next week. That'd be awesome, but it's not going to. And that would really interfere with Ratchet as well. That would be really unfair to Ratchet.